We do know now of the illegal spying by the NYPD on the Muslim community. But now, to add insult to injury, the NYPD is trying to hide its tactics as well as avoid embarrassment to continue spying on Muslims. Yesterday, a hearing pertaining to the Freedom of Information Law, referred to as FOIL, and the surveillance of Imam Talib Abdul Rashid and Rutgers University's Muslim students was held. Attorney Omar Mohammedi, who served as the first Muslim and Arab New York City Commissioner on Human Rights, has litigated cases of national prominence such as that of Amadou Diallo versus the City of New York and the case of Shakirat versus U.S. Airways Group. I hope I've gotten the pronunciation right, but it was known as the Six Imams case, and who is president and founder of the Association of Muslim American Lawyers, joins us now. And good morning, and thank you for your work.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
So let's look at what most people would not have heard of, the Glomar theory, and how the NYPD seeks to use it to hide behind and shield it from culpability for illegal surveillance.
Yes, the Glomar theory is the theory that has been applied by federal agencies for foreign defense, for defense issues, for issues related to security, national security. That was issued as a result of mostly act of Congress and also executive order to allow federal agencies to classify documents for national security. The NYPD does not have any of that. The NYPD does not have classification authority. It does not have the authority to say we cannot confirm or deny the existence of any documents under FOIA. So what's happened? There is FOIL and there is FOIA. FOIA is the FOIA. It's a federal. It's similar to FOIL. It's the same thing. It's just the federal agency will have to use, and even under FOIA there is no Glomar except for some very clear exceptions, which I call them exemptions. For any federal agency to use, but they are stipulated by the law, stipulated by executive orders, and they are very narrow in their application. Those actually resulted in one of the cases in the 70s where there was a submarine that sunk in the ocean, and there were documents related to the Soviet Union that the press was asking for information on that. And that's when the federal government used Glomar. We cannot confirm, deny of such existence. Obviously, the NYPD has none of that.
So what is the NYPD asking the judiciary to do? This is another way of avoiding another component of the illegal surveillance and spying on the Muslim community. Tell us more about that.
Yes. So I think the NYPD now is going beyond what their obligation and their FOIL is for them to say. So FOIL was actually established in 1974. It was amended in 1975, and then it was actually repealed and replaced with another legislation in 1977. It was amended several times up to 2008. And FOIL existence means what? Means an open government. Means the government has to be open about the information that they have about their own citizens, and they'll be accountable if they have any documents that they will have to show it to their own citizen, unless there are exemptions under FOIL, and the exemptions are law enforcement practice for instance, sensitive information, and that's, however, under that exemption, what the NYPD will have to say: we have documents, but we cannot give those documents to you, and we'll give the judiciary, judicial scrutiny for the court to be able to decide if those documents are really sensitive or not for them to claim an exemption. So which means the burden is on the burden of the proof is on the NYPD to have to show it. Also, these exemptions are narrowly construed, which means you cannot broaden them and include any, like, for instance, blanket exemptions. And that's what Glomar is. Glomar is blanket exemption. So what he did, in a sense, is doing to the court. If this would be applied, it's going to be a disaster for Floyd. It's going to be a disaster for New York City residents, for everyone, not only Muslims, believe it or not. It's going to affect how the NYPD is going to conduct its business. Like Judge Moulton on lower court specifically says, it's going to create a wall between the government and the citizen. So what is going to happen is the NYPD is going to do what, and as a matter of fact, they said that yesterday in their appeal, as if we are doing everything we can, trust us. So they don't trust, they don't even trust now the judiciary to find out if those documents they have are legitimately withheld or not. And that's what the exemption is, and therefore you will have to acknowledge the existence of such documents. They're saying we cannot confirm, deny. Therefore, even this court cannot and will not be able to review or to know if we search for this document, which is actually one of the certification, and therefore that's an agency, state or city agency, will have to certify looking for those documents if they find them and where they are located. Now, the court will have to know where those documents are located, the volume of those documents, the quality of the documents, and the quantity of documents. I mean, the volume is the quantity. So it will have to look at all of these for them to make a determination if those really they're subject to exemption or not. They're not even giving that opportunity to the court now to even go and do whatever they need to do to make sure to render a decision, except for accepting and trusting the NYPD. We cannot confirm and deny. And, after the revelation, as we all know, the AP revelation, with the spying on them, the Associated Press revelation on surveillance against the Muslim community. Obviously, the NYPD, what Judge Moulton also said, they're trying to avoid embarrassment. It's nothing about security. I mean, they produce an affidavit for so-called affidavit about Galati. And the affidavit goes, 21-page affidavit, describe terrorism, describe everything and how the NYPD, what they have done. Those have nothing to do with our clients, nothing whatsoever. Our clients are good, abiding citizens. One of them is a prominent civil rights, imam. The other one is a Rutgers student. Those people have nothing to do with this. So they try to create a fear-mongering, right, and trying to convince people, we cannot do this. I mean, what they are essentially saying that if you're a Muslim and ask for FOIL, then a new rule will apply to you. That's exactly what they are saying. Because you can take that affidavit and you can apply it to every person, and it will apply to that person. No specifics, except in general. And, I mean, in addition to a lot of contradictions in that affidavit, but still, even affidavit, I mean, we can talk about affidavit, we can talk about all of these. There is a law, there is FOIL, and FOIL is very clear that the NYPD or any other state or city agency, they have to follow. They want to go beyond and above the law. That's what they want to do. And they, the abuse of power the NYPD will have, it will be tremendous. It will be huge, and that can be a problem.
I must admit, I think about this in the context of the latest reports that the FBI has a new plan to spy on high school students across the country. But to go back to this, what kind of documents are you looking for, and how do you think it will further the interests of civil liberties and also discipline the NYPD around the illegal surveillance that was employed of, in this particular case, your clients, Talib Abdul Rashid, and the Rutgers University Muslim students? At this point, I just want to know, and we just want to know what if they have the documents or not. We're not even able to find out. The court is not able to find out. The open policy principle that exists under FOIL
is not able to, the legislator is not able, I mean, obviously the legislator has an intent, specific exemptions that if you don't have the document, you will have to say, at this point, we don't even know. For us to even think about anything else, we just need to know. You have the documents? Yes. If you have those documents, are there exemptions? Yes. Or if no, the ones that are exempt, you don't produce. The ones that are exempt,
and those documents, what kind of documents do you think, what do you think the substance or nature of those documents are that continue to inform the illegal surveillance and I dare say the kind of hysteria, stereotypical profiling that went on that became the basis for the actual practice of surveilling your clients?
I'm not even going to make any statement as to the type of document because at this point I don't even know. But one thing I know is there is a state law very clear that any state or city agency, law enforcement agency, cannot keep documents of innocent people, and that is against the law. Unless those people are involved in criminality, that's a different story. And now we have not even reached that point. We don't even know. I mean, they are building a wall. Speaking of the wall,
yes.
Right? Trump. They are building a wall. They are building a wall between New York City citizens and residents and their operations. They are building a wall between New York courts and their application and their conducting, their operations. They're creating a wall that no one will be able to access any information. That defeats the purpose of existence of FOIL. That's exactly the essence of FOIL. Is an open government. You have exemptions. Then you have to follow them. They are saying we're not going. You know what? One of the things it's interesting. They keep referring to FOIA. FOIA, it's a federal, statute. It's not a state statute. Otherwise, why would even FOIA be established if you keep referring to FOIA? Is the NYPD a federal agency? No. Is the federal do you know the NYPD was provided with any authority by the mayor, by city council, or by the government that they can classify documents? No. It's a law enforcement agency. It's not an intelligence agency. That's what the NYPD is. And if you conduct any law enforcement, operations that can be sensitive, then claim your exemptions under FOIL. Claim it under the law, not outside the law. That's what we are asking. We're not asking more than that.
Attorney Mohammedi, where does the de Blasio administration stand on supporting the NYPD's efforts to withhold documents to claim that it has an exemption under Glomar to prevent people from getting the documentation that further informs as to the illegal surveillance that was engaged in by the NYPD of members of the Muslim community?
It's funny because when Mayor de Blasio was running for office, he made it clear that he will give an F to FOIL responses from the NYPD. That when he was running, right? So if that was an F, I don't know what it is now. If that was an F when people were delaying, where the NYPD and other agencies were delaying the response, were using pretexts not to produce document, now, establishing and now asserting Glomar, I mean, how is it low? Is there anything lower than F? I'm not sure. So that's where we are.
Well, that's a terrible place to be in, but thank goodness that you are on the case, and we're going to pay close attention to this case. There is the issue of the spying itself. There is the issue of the FBI that has a new plan to spy on high school students across the country. And there is the issue of open government and the claims that the NYPD does not have to respond to FOIL requests to get the documents that help us understand who and why these illegal surveillance mechanisms were prompted. And in this case, against Imam Talib Abdul Rashid and Rutgers University Muslim students. And I want to thank you for your outstanding work. You've always been on the case. And we're going to continue, as I said, to keep a close eye on this. We've been speaking to Attorney Omar Mohammedi. Yes, sir.
I have one last comment before I leave, and this is for the lawyers who are listening. This Glomar theory is going to revamp the precedent, is going to revamp the legislation, the FOIL legislation, because the precedent clearly states, and many cases that state that any agency cannot present any or assert any blanket exemption that is against the intent of the legislator. The NYPD is saying this is part of the intent of the legislature. Contradiction, major contradiction, and also it's going to prevent the court to conduct its own work, which is judicial scrutiny. That is against a democratic society that we live in.
Well, we're going to leave it there and pick up on it again as the procedural posture changes as it winds its way through the courts. We'd like to thank Attorney Omar Mohammedi, who is on the case and representing the Imam Talib Abdul Rashid and the Rutgers University Muslim students who were impacted by the illegal NYPD surveillance of them. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.